With Colonel Dawson's arrest and the truth about his crimes exposed, the Valeth finally found themselves free from fear. The world began to see them not as fragile aliens, but as resilient beings who had overcome incredible odds. News outlets broadcast stories of their bravery, showing footage of the battle at the bunker and interviews with those who had worked alongside them. Humanity's perception shifted dramatically, and support for the Valeth grew stronger than ever. Syrah stood among her people, watching as preparations were made for their return home. It was a bittersweet moment. Earth had become a second home to them, filled with friendships and lessons that would stay with them forever. But their true home, their planet, was waiting. With the knowledge and skills they had gained, they were ready to rebuild and restore it. "We'll never forget what you've done for us," Syrah told Laura and Daniel one evening, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "You gave us hope when we had none." Laura smiled, placing a hand on Syrah's shoulder. "And you reminded us of something important. That strength isn't just about power. It's about standing together, no matter how hard things get." Daniel nodded in agreement, his eyes reflecting pride and admiration. "Take care of each other," he said simply. "That's all that matters." The day of departure arrived under clear skies. A spacecraft specially designed for the Valeth awaited them on the launch pad, its sleek design blending human technology with Valeth ingenuity. As they boarded, Syrah paused to look back one last time. Her glowing skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and she raised a hand in farewell. Daniel waved back, unable to hide the lump in his throat. Though they were parting ways, their bond remained unbreakable, a testament to the trust and friendship they had forged. Once aboard, the Valeth worked together seamlessly, piloting the ship with ease. Their evolution had not only made them physically stronger, but also smarter and more capable than anyone could have imagined. As the engines roared to life and the spacecraft lifted off, cheers erupted from the crowd below. Humans and Valeth alike watched as the vessel disappeared into the sky, carrying with it the promise of a brighter future. Back on their planet, the Valeth set to work immediately. Using what they had learned on Earth, they began repairing their damaged world. They constructed shelters, cultivated crops, and restored ecosystems, their efforts guided by the unity and determination they had discovered during their time away. Syrah took on a leadership role, inspiring her people to dream bigger and aim higher than ever before. "We are not the weakest species anymore," she told them. "We are survivors. We are protectors." On Earth, life slowly returned to normal, but the impact of the Valeth's journey lingered. Laura continued her research, documenting everything they had learned about the aliens' biology and evolution. Her work became a cornerstone for future interstellar relations, proving that cooperation between species could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Daniel, meanwhile, found himself changed by the experience. He often thought of Syrah, wondering how she was doing and hoping she knew how much she had inspired him. Months later, a message arrived from the Valeth. It was brief but heartfelt. "Thank you for believing in us. Our worlds will always be connected." The transmission included images of their thriving planet, lush forests, clean rivers, and smiling faces. Humanity responded with a message of their own. "We're proud of you. The galaxy is safer because of you." As the stars twinkled above, two species separated by vast distances remained united by shared experiences and mutual respect. The Valeth had started as the galaxy's weakest species, but had transformed into its most formidable protectors. And humanity, once uncertain about their place in the cosmos, had discovered a new purpose: to stand alongside others, not as rulers, but as equals. Together, they had proven that even in the face of fear and doubt, unity could create something unstoppable. The evidence against Colonel Dawson was undeniable. The data retrieved from his base painted a clear picture of betrayal, corruption, and illegal experiments conducted on the Valeth. Laura knew they had to act quickly to ensure the truth reached the right people before Dawson could cover his tracks. She contacted trusted allies within the government, sharing the files and pleading for an official investigation. At first, there was resistance. Some officials were reluctant to believe such accusations against a high-ranking officer, but the sheer weight of the evidence forced them to take action. Dawson, realizing his position was crumbling, decided to make one last stand. He rallied his remaining loyalists and launched a counterattack, targeting the underground bunker where the Vaylith were hiding. His goal was simple: destroy all evidence and silence anyone who opposed him. When scouts reported his forces approaching, panic spread through the bunker. But this time, the Vaylith were ready. They had trained for this moment, and they weren't about to let fear dictate their fate. Sira stood at the center of the group, her glowing skin brighter than ever. "We fight together," she said firmly, her voice carrying a strength that inspired everyone around her. Daniel nodded, gripping a weapon tightly. "Stay close to me," he told her, though he knew she didn't need protection anymore. Sira smiled faintly, her confidence unwavering. "I will protect you too." The battle began with a deafening roar as Dawson's soldiers breached the entrance. The Vaylith met them head-on, using their abilities to turn the tide. Kel's heightened awareness allowed him to anticipate enemy movements, guiding his teammates away from danger. Others used their telepathic connections to coordinate attacks, striking with precision and speed. Sira led the charge, her energy surging as she created barriers of light to block incoming fire. Her hands moved like lightning, disarming opponents and rendering them unconscious without causing lasting harm. Despite their skill, the Vaylith were outnumbered. Dawson's forces pushed forward relentlessly, forcing the defenders deeper into the bunker. It was during this critical moment that Dawson himself appeared, wielding experimental technology designed specifically to counter the Vaylith's powers. A device strapped to his wrist emitted pulses of energy that disrupted their abilities, leaving them momentarily vulnerable. "You can't win," he sneered, advancing toward Sira. "You're still just weak little creatures." But Sira refused to back down. Drawing on every ounce of strength and determination, she focused her mind, pushing past the interference. Her body glowed brighter, the energy radiating outward in waves. With a fierce cry, she lunged at Dawson, knocking the device from his hand. Taken by surprise, he stumbled backward, giving Daniel the opening he needed to disarm him. The tide of the battle shifted dramatically after that. Without their leader, Dawson's soldiers lost cohesion, retreating in disarray. By the time reinforcements arrived, military units sent by the government to investigate the allegations, the bunker was secure once more. Dawson was arrested on the spot, his crimes exposed for all to see. In the aftermath, the bunker fell silent except for the soft chirps of the Vaylith and the murmured conversations of their human allies. Sira knelt beside Daniel, her glow dimming slightly as exhaustion set in. "It's over," she said softly, her voice filled with relief. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling despite his own fatigue. "You did it," he replied. "All of you." Laura watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling with pride. The Vaylith had proven themselves not just as survivors, but as heroes. Their courage and unity had saved not only their own kind, but also humanity from making a grave mistake. As news of Dawson's arrest spread, public opinion began to shift. The Vaylith were no longer seen as threats. They were recognized as partners, capable of incredible feats when given trust and support. For Sira, the victory was bittersweet. She thought of those who had been lost along the way, both human and Vaylith, and vowed never to forget their sacrifices. But she also looked ahead, hopeful for the future. Together, they had faced their greatest challenge and emerged stronger than ever. Whatever lay ahead, she knew they would face it side by side. As the days turned into weeks, life in the underground bunker became a mix of routine and tension. The Vaylith adapted to their new surroundings, using their heightened abilities to make the most of the confined space. Sira spent hours practicing with her powers, learning to control them with precision. She could now sense emotions from across the room and project vivid images into the minds of others. Her progress inspired the other Vaylith, who worked hard to master their own skills. Yet, despite their growth, the looming threat of Colonel Dawson cast a shadow over everything. Laura and Commander Ryan knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Dawson's forces were still out there, and it was only a matter of time before they found the bunker. The team needed a plan, not just to survive, but to end the threat once and for all. Laura suggested a bold move, infiltrating Dawson's base to rescue the captured Vayleth and expose his crimes to the world. It was a risky idea, but it was their best chance to turn the tide. "We can't do this alone," Daniel said during one of their strategy meetings. "The Vayleth need to be part of this. They're stronger than we thought. They can help." Laura hesitated, knowing how dangerous it would be to involve the aliens in such a high-stakes mission. But Sira stepped forward, her glowing skin bright with determination. "We will fight," she said firmly. "This is our home now. We will protect it." With Sira leading the way, the Vayleth began preparing for the assault. Under Daniel's guidance, they practiced stealth tactics, learning to move silently and avoid detection. Kale, whose ability to read body language had grown sharper, became an expert at spotting traps and ambushes. Others focused on teamwork, using their telepathic connections to coordinate attacks without speaking. Watching them train, Laura realized just how far they had come. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were warriors. The night of the mission arrived, and the group set out under the cover of darkness. Armed with makeshift weapons and their newfound abilities, the Vayleth moved like shadows, guided by Sira's leadership. Daniel stayed close to her, his presence a source of strength. "Stay alert," he whispered as they approached Dawson's heavily guarded compound. Sira nodded, her senses already scanning the area for signs of danger. Breaking into the base was no easy task. Security cameras lined the perimeter, and patrols roamed the grounds. But the Vayleth's unique skills gave them an edge. Using her ability to sense vibrations, Sira located weak points in the fence, while Kale identified patrol patterns and blind spots. One by one, they slipped inside undetected, their movements precise and deliberate. Inside, the group split up to cover more ground. Sira led her team toward the holding cells where the captured Vayleth were being kept. Along the way, they encountered several guards, but the Vayleth's speed and coordination made short work of them. Sira disarmed one soldier with a swift strike, her glowing hands leaving trails of energy in the air. "We're almost there," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. When they finally reached the cells, the sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. The captured Vayleth were weak and frightened, their translucent skin dull from neglect. But when they saw Sira and the others, their eyes lit up with hope. "We've come to take you home," Sira told them, her voice filled with compassion. With Daniel's help, they freed the prisoners and guided them back toward the exit. Meanwhile, Laura and Commander Ryan worked on accessing Dawson's mainframe to retrieve incriminating evidence. They uploaded the data onto a secure device, ensuring it couldn't be destroyed. As they prepared to leave, alarms blared throughout the base. Dawson had discovered the intrusion. "Move," Ryan shouted, leading the group toward the extraction point. The Vayleth fought fiercely to hold off the pursuing soldiers, their powers shining brighter than ever. Sira stood at the rear, creating a barrier of energy to slow down their enemies. When everyone was safely outside, she joined the retreat, her heart pounding with relief. Back at the bunker, the rescued Vayleth were reunited with their kin, their gratitude evident in their soft chirps and gestures. Laura reviewed the stolen data, confident they now had enough to bring Dawson to justice. For the first time since the attack, hope flickered in their hearts. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, and together, they were ready to reclaim their future. After the attack, the facility was no longer safe. Colonel Dawson's betrayal had exposed the Vayleth to a level of danger that Laura and her team hadn't anticipated. Though Commander Ryan managed to drive off Dawson's forces, the damage was done. The military faction now knew where the Vayleth were being held, and it was only a matter of time before they returned with greater numbers. Laura realized they couldn't wait around for another assault. They had to act quickly. "We need to move them," Laura said during an emergency meeting. Her voice was firm but tinged with urgency. "If we stay here, we're sitting ducks." Commander Ryan nodded in agreement, though his expression was grim. "Where do we go?" he asked. "We can't just hide them indefinitely." Laura hesitated, then spoke with quiet resolve. "We'll take them underground. For now, there are secure bunkers scattered across the country. We can regroup there and figure out our next steps." The evacuation began immediately. Under the cover of darkness, the Valith were transported to a remote bunker hidden deep within the mountains. It was a tense journey with everyone on edge, watching for signs of pursuit. Sarah stayed close to Daniel, who was recovering from his injuries but still weak. She refused to leave his side, her glowing skin dimmed with worry. "You protected me," she said softly as they traveled. "Now I will protect you." Once they reached the bunker, the group settled into their temporary home. It wasn't luxurious, just a series of cold, concrete rooms, but it offered safety. For the first time since the attack, Laura allowed herself a moment to breathe. Yet even here, far from prying eyes, tensions lingered. The Valith were shaken by what had happened, their trust in humanity fractured. Many of them avoided interactions with the humans, retreating into themselves. Sarah, however, remained different. Her bond with Daniel gave her strength, and she worked tirelessly to reassure her fellow Valith that not all humans were like Dawson. As the days passed, something remarkable began to happen. The Valith started evolving again, this time in ways no one had predicted. Their bodies grew stronger, yes, but it wasn't just physical. They developed heightened senses, able to detect changes in temperature, vibrations, and even emotions. Sarah discovered she could sense fear or anger radiating from others, while Kale, another Valith, found himself capable of reading subtle shifts in body language. These new abilities fascinated Laura, who documented every detail. But the evolution didn't stop there. The Valith also began communicating more effectively, using a mix of gestures, sounds, and even telepathic-like connections to share thoughts. During one session, Sarah demonstrated this newfound skill by projecting an image into Daniel's mind, a memory of her planet, shimmering under its dying sun. Daniel gasped, amazed by the clarity of the vision. "Did you see that?" he asked Laura, who could only nod in wonder. While the Valith adapted to their powers, Laura and her team worked on a plan to expose Dawson's treachery. They knew they couldn't fight him directly, not without risking everything, but they could gather evidence to discredit him. Using recordings from the facility's security cameras, they pieced together proof of Dawson's illegal operation. The footage showed him ordering the attack, threatening both humans and Valith alike. It was damning evidence, but getting it to the right people wouldn't be easy. In the meantime, the Valith prepared for the possibility of another confrontation. With guidance from Daniel and the other trainers, they practiced using their abilities in combat scenarios. Sarah, in particular, excelled at strategy, her quick thinking earning her the respect of her peers. "We won't run anymore," she told Daniel one evening, her voice steady. "If they come for us, we will stand and fight." Daniel admired her courage, but worried about the cost of such a battle. "Fighting isn't always the answer," he said gently. "Sometimes survival means knowing when to walk away." Sarah tilted her head, considering his words. "And sometimes," she replied, "it means knowing when to protect what matters most." Though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. The Valith were no longer the fragile beings they had been when they arrived on Earth. They were becoming something extraordinary, stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. And with their human allies by their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Despite the success of the demonstrations, not everyone was ready to embrace the Valith. While some people were inspired by their progress, others remained deeply suspicious, convinced that empowering such a fragile species could lead to disaster. Among the skeptics was Colonel Eric Dawson, a high-ranking military officer who had been quietly monitoring the program from the start. Dawson didn't trust the Valith, or Laura and her team. He believed they were playing with forces they couldn't control and feared the aliens would eventually turn against humanity. Dawson wasn't alone in his concerns. A small but influential faction within the military shared his views, and together they began plotting to take matters into their own hands. They argued that the Valith's rapid evolution made them too dangerous to remain free. Instead, they wanted to capture the aliens and study them in secret, using their abilities for human gain. To Dawson, it wasn't about helping the Valith. It was about ensuring humanity stayed on top. One night, under the cover of darkness, Dawson launched his plan. A group of soldiers dressed in black tactical gear arrived at the facility, armed with advanced weapons and equipment designed to subdue the Valith. Their orders were clear: seize as many of the aliens as possible and eliminate anyone who got in their way. The attack caught everyone off guard. Alarms blared through the halls as chaos erupted, waking both humans and Valith from their sleep. Sarah was one of the first to realize something was wrong. Her heightened senses picked up the sound of footsteps and faint vibrations long before the alarm sounded. She woke Daniel, tugging at his sleeve urgently. "Something is coming," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's instincts kicked in immediately. Grabbing Sarah's hand, he led her out of the sleeping quarters and toward the main building, where other trainers and Valith were gathering. Panic spread quickly as gunfire echoed through the compound. Laura, hearing the commotion, rushed to protect the Valith. She knew they wouldn't stand a chance against trained soldiers without help. "Stay close," she shouted, herding the frightened aliens toward an emergency exit. But the attackers were prepared, cutting off escape routes and surrounding the group. Dawson himself appeared, stepping forward with a cold smile. "This is for your own good," he said, raising his weapon. Just as things seemed hopeless, Daniel stepped in front of Sarah, shielding her from harm. "You don't have to do this," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the danger. Dawson sneered. "Move aside, soldier. This isn't your fight." But Daniel refused to budge. His bravery inspired others, trainers and Valith alike, to stand together, forming a protective circle around their alien allies. The standoff was brief but intense. Shots rang out, and several humans were injured trying to defend the Valith. Sarah watched in horror as Daniel took a hit meant for her, collapsing to the ground. For a moment, she froze, overwhelmed by fear and guilt. Then, something inside her snapped. Her body glowed brighter than ever, and an energy surged through her veins, a power she hadn't known she possessed. With a fierce cry, she lunged at the nearest soldier, disarming him with surprising strength. Seeing Sarah fight back gave the others hope. The Valith, fueled by adrenaline and determination, used their newfound skills to resist capture. Together with their human defenders, they managed to hold off Dawson's forces long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Commander Ryan Scott, alerted by Laura earlier, stormed the facility with a team of loyal soldiers, forcing Dawson to retreat. When the dust settled, Daniel lay unconscious but alive, thanks to quick medical attention. Sarah knelt beside him, her glowing skin dimmed with worry. "He saved me," she said softly to Laura, her voice filled with gratitude. Laura nodded, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. That's what friends do. Though the immediate threat had passed, the aftermath left scars. Dawson's betrayal exposed deep divisions within the program, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about trust and fear. For Sarah and the other Valith, it was a painful reminder that not all humans saw them as allies, but it also strengthened their bond with those who had risked everything to protect them. As dawn broke over the battered facility, one thing was clear: the journey ahead would be even harder than they imagined, but together, they were ready to face it. The success of the Valith training program began to attract attention beyond the research facility. News of their rapid progress spread quickly, sparking both admiration and unease among those who learned about it. Scientists praised the project as a groundbreaking achievement, while politicians and military leaders debated its implications. For every person who saw hope in the Valith's transformation, There was another who viewed them with suspicion, questioning whether humanity was making a dangerous mistake by empowering such a vulnerable species. Syrah and the other Vailith noticed the growing tension but struggled to understand it. They had come to trust their human mentors, especially Daniel, and believed that everyone shared the same goal, helping them grow stronger and survive. But as whispers of dissent reached the facility, Syrah began to sense something was wrong. Her ability to read emotions, though still developing, allowed her to pick up on subtle cues. Tightened jaws, hesitant glances, and hushed conversations. She didn't know what these signs meant, but they made her uneasy. One evening, after a long day of training, Syrah approached Daniel with a question. "Why do some humans fear us?" she asked through the translator device. Her voice was soft, almost childlike, but her words carried weight. Daniel hesitated, unsure how to explain something so complex. Finally, he knelt down to meet her at eye level. "Fear is a natural reaction," he said gently. "When people don't understand something, they sometimes worry about what might happen. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they need time to see the truth." Syrah tilted her head, processing his words. "But we only want to live," she said simply. "To be strong like you." Daniel smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And that's exactly why we're here, to help you get there." Despite Daniel's reassurances, the tension outside the facility continued to build. Senator Gregory Hunt, a vocal critic of the program, demanded stricter oversight. He argued that the Vailith's rapid evolution posed a threat to human security and called for immediate action to limit their progress. His speeches fueled public fears, painting the Vailith as unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Laura watched the news reports with growing frustration, knowing that misinformation could undo everything they had worked for. Determined to protect the program, Laura decided to fight back, not with arguments, but with evidence. She organized a series of demonstrations to showcase the Vailith's abilities and highlight their peaceful intentions. The events were designed to bring transparency to the project and reassure skeptics that the Vailith were no threat. Commander Ryan reluctantly agreed, though he warned Laura that not everyone would be convinced. On the day of the first demonstration, the facility buzzed with activity. Guests from all walks of life arrived to witness the Vailith in action. Scientists, government officials, journalists, and even curious civilians filled the observation area. Syrah stood nervously beside Daniel, her glowing skin dimmed slightly by anxiety. "Don't worry," Daniel whispered. "You've got this." The demonstration began with basic tasks, showing how the Vailith had mastered skills like climbing, problem-solving, and teamwork. Then came the more advanced challenges, including combat simulations against robotic drones. When it was Syrah's turn, she moved with precision and grace, dodging attacks and disabling the drones with calculated strikes. The audience gasped in amazement as she completed the exercise flawlessly, her movements fluid and confident. By the end of the demonstration, applause filled the room. Many of the skeptics left impressed, their fears eased by what they had seen. But not everyone was satisfied. Senator Hunt remained unconvinced, accusing the program of being reckless and irresponsible. "This is just a show," he declared during a televised interview. "What happens when these creatures surpass us? Will they still follow our rules?" His words cast a shadow over the celebration, reminding everyone of the challenges ahead. Laura knew the road wouldn't be easy, but she refused to give up. The Vailith weren't just proving their strength, they were proving their worth. And as long as she had allies like Daniel and supporters willing to stand by them, she believed they could overcome any obstacle. That night, as the facility grew quiet, Syrah sat with Daniel, watching the stars through a nearby window. "Do you think they'll ever trust us?" she asked softly. Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "It might take time," he said. "But trust isn't given, it's earned. And you're earning it every single day." Syrah nodded, her glow brightening slightly. For now, that was enough. The weeks passed quickly, and the transformation in the Vailith became impossible to ignore. Their bodies grew stronger, their movements more fluid, and their confidence soared with each new skill they mastered. Sura, in particular, stood out as a symbol of the program's success. Under Daniel's guidance, she had gone from struggling with basic tasks to excelling at complex challenges that would have seemed insurmountable just months before. Her progress was nothing short of extraordinary. One day, Laura introduced a new test: obstacle courses designed to push the Valeth to their limits. The courses were filled with hurdles, balance beams, climbing walls, and tunnels that required agility, strength, and quick thinking. At first glance, the setup looked daunting, even for humans, but Laura believed the Valeth were ready. "They've come so far," she told Daniel. "Let's see what they can really do." Sira approached the course with her usual mix of curiosity and determination. She studied the layout carefully, her large eyes scanning every detail. When Daniel gave her the signal to begin, she moved forward cautiously, testing each obstacle before committing fully. The first hurdle tripped her up. Literally. She stumbled but caught herself quickly, her reflexes sharper than ever. Encouraged by Daniel's steady voice, she tried again, clearing it on her second attempt. By the time she reached the climbing wall, her confidence had grown, and she scaled it with surprising speed. What amazed everyone wasn't just her physical abilities, but how quickly she adapted. When she slipped on the balance beam, she adjusted her footing almost instantly. When a tunnel proved too narrow, she found a way to twist her body and squeeze through. By the end of the course, she completed it faster than anyone expected, her glowing skin shimmering with pride. Daniel clapped loudly, beaming with pride. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Sira chirped happily, her bond with him stronger than ever. Other Valeth followed suit, tackling the course with varying degrees of success. Some struggled, while others excelled, but all showed remarkable improvement. Laura watched closely, jotting down notes on their performance. She noticed patterns, how their bodies seemed to adapt not just through practice, but almost instinctively, as if their biology responded to the challenges they faced. It was as though evolution itself had been accelerated within them. Laura shared her observations with Commander Ryan during one of their meetings. "Their potential is incredible," she said, her excitement bubbling over. "I think we're seeing something unique here, not just learning, but actual biological change." Ryan listened intently but remained cautious. "That's a bold claim," he said. "Are you sure it's safe? What if this kind of rapid adaptation has side effects we don't understand?" Laura nodded, acknowledging his concerns. "I know there are risks," she admitted, "but look at what they've achieved so far. If we stop now, we'll never know what they're truly capable of." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right," he said finally. "Keep going, but report any unusual changes immediately." As the program continued, the Valeth began showing signs of heightened intelligence as well. They started solving problems faster, anticipating challenges, and even working together in ways that surprised their trainers. During one session, Sira and another Valeth named Kel worked as a team to complete a puzzle that required coordination and communication. Their ability to strategize and adapt on the fly left everyone in awe. Despite the progress, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Not everyone was comfortable with how quickly the Valeth were advancing. Some members of the team worried about losing control, while others questioned whether humanity was playing God by accelerating their evolution. Laura heard the murmurs but chose to focus on the positive. The Valeth weren't just growing stronger, they were thriving. Their gratitude toward their human mentors was evident in their actions and expressions. For Daniel, watching Sira evolve was both exhilarating and humbling. He realized that she wasn't just learning from him. He was learning from her too. Her resilience reminded him of the strength that came from perseverance, and her trust inspired him to believe in possibilities he'd never imagined. Together, they were breaking barriers, proving that even the weakest among us could become unstoppable with the right support. As the days turned into weeks, the question lingered: how far could the Valeth go? For now, The answer seemed limitless, and with each passing day, humanity's role in their journey grew clearer. This wasn't just about helping an alien species survive. It was about unlocking potential neither race had ever dreamed possible. As the days turned into weeks, the training program for the Valeth began to take shape. Each session brought new challenges and small victories, but none were as remarkable as the progress made by Sira and Daniel. Their partnership had become the heart of the program, a shining example of what could be achieved when patience met determination. Daniel often found himself marveling at Sira's ability to adapt. She was quick to learn, not just from her successes, but also from her failures, which seemed to fuel her resolve rather than discourage her. One morning, Daniel introduced a new exercise, climbing. He set up a simple structure with low bars and platforms, designed to test balance and coordination. At first, Sira hesitated. Her slender frame and delicate limbs made the task seem daunting, even impossible. But Daniel encouraged her gently, using hand signals and soft words to show her it was safe to try. "You can do this," he said, his voice calm and steady. Sira tilted her head, studying the structure before taking a tentative step forward. Her first attempt ended in failure. She slipped halfway up and fell lightly to the ground, her translucent skin glowing faintly with embarrassment. Daniel knelt beside her, offering a reassuring smile. "It's okay," he said. "Try again. Every fall teaches you something." Sira looked at him for a moment, then nodded. With renewed focus, she approached the structure once more. This time, she moved more carefully, testing each grip and foothold before committing her weight. Slowly but surely, she climbed higher, her movements growing more confident with every passing second. By the end of the session, Sira had reached the top. She stood there for a moment, her large eyes wide with triumph, before letting out a soft chirp that sounded almost like laughter. Daniel clapped, unable to hide his pride. "See, I told you," he said, grinning. Sira's glow brightened, and she gave him a small bow, a gesture of gratitude that touched him deeply. Meanwhile, other trainers reported similar breakthroughs with their Valeth. One group mastered basic problem-solving puzzles within days, while another learned to mimic human speech patterns with surprising accuracy. Laura watched these developments closely, her excitement growing with each success. She began documenting everything, noting how quickly the Valeth adapted to new stimuli and how their bodies responded to physical activity. It was as if they were evolving right before her eyes. But not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Some members of the team remained skeptical, questioning whether the Valeth's rapid progress was sustainable or even safe. "They're changing too fast," muttered Commander Ryan during one of their meetings. "We don't know what the long-term effects will be." Laura understood his concerns but couldn't ignore the evidence in front of her. "That's why we need to keep going," she replied. "If we stop now, we'll never know what they're truly capable of." Despite the doubts, Laura pushed forward, refining the program and introducing more complex tasks. For Sira, this meant learning to work with tools, simple objects like hammers and wrenches that required precision and control. At first, her hands trembled, unused to the weight and texture of the items, but Daniel stayed by her side, guiding her movements until she grew comfortable. "You're doing great," he said repeatedly, his encouragement unwavering. By the end of the week, Sira could use the tools with ease, her confidence soaring. As the program continued, a bond formed between the humans and the Valeth. The aliens, once fearful and withdrawn, began to trust their mentors, relying on them not just for guidance, but for companionship. Sira, in particular, seemed to thrive under Daniel's care. She followed him everywhere, eager to learn and explore. Daniel, in turn, found himself looking forward to their sessions, amazed by her resilience and intelligence. Still, questions lingered in the back of Laura's mind. How far could the Valeth go? What would happen when they reached their limits, or surpassed them? For now, though, she focused on the present, watching as Sira and the others transformed before her eyes. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: The Valeth were no longer the fragile beings they had been when they arrived. They were becoming something stronger, something extraordinary, and humanity was helping them every step of the way. When the exploration ship returned to Earth, it carried not only stories of distant worlds, but also the fragile hope of an entire species. The Valeth were brought to a secure research facility nestled in the mountains, far from prying eyes. Here, scientists and military personnel worked side by side to study the aliens and determine how best to assist them. Among the team was Dr. Laura Hayes, whose curiosity about the Valeth had only deepened since their journey began. The facility was designed to mimic the Valeth's natural environment as closely as possible, with soft lighting and controlled temperatures. Despite these efforts, the aliens appeared uneasy. They moved cautiously, their large eyes scanning every corner of the room. Laura noticed that they seemed particularly wary of the humans in uniforms, likely associating them with authority or threat. She made a mental note to address this fear, knowing trust would be key to their success. Commander Ryan Scott, who oversaw the program, called a meeting to discuss the next steps. "We can't just keep them here indefinitely," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "If we're going to help them, we need a plan." Laura raised her hand, her mind already racing with ideas. "What if we train them?" she suggested. "Not just physically, but mentally and socially. Teach them skills that could help them adapt, not just on Earth, but anywhere." Ryan frowned, clearly skeptical. "They're fragile, Doctor. Look at them. How do you expect them to handle anything strenuous?" Laura nodded, acknowledging his concerns. "I understand your doubts, but I've seen how quickly they learn. Their intelligence is off the charts. If we give them the tools, they might surprise us all." After some debate, Ryan reluctantly agreed to let Laura try her approach, though he warned her that time and resources were limited. Laura wasted no time assembling a team of trainers, each tasked with working closely with a small group of Valeth. She believed that personal connections would be crucial to their progress. To her relief, Commander Scott assigned Daniel, a former Marine with a calm and patient demeanor, to assist her. Together, they began pairing humans with Valeth, creating bonds that would form the foundation of the program. One partnership stood out immediately: Daniel and Syrah. Syrah was younger than most of the Valeth, her translucent skin glowing faintly even under the artificial lights. She was curious, often watching the humans with wide-eyed fascination. Daniel noticed this early on and decided to engage her directly. "Hi there," he said gently, crouching to meet her at eye level. Syrah tilted her head, studying him for a moment before responding with a soft chirp. Though neither spoke the other's language fluently, the intent was clear. This was the start of something new. Their first session was slow and awkward. Laura had instructed the trainers to begin with simple physical exercises, like stretching and light movements. Syrah struggled at first, her limbs trembling under the unfamiliar strain. But Daniel encouraged her patiently, using gestures and smiles to communicate support. By the end of the session, Syrah managed to complete a few basic stretches, her pride evident in the way she held herself. Over the following days, progress remained gradual but steady. Syrah's body adapted faster than anyone expected, and her sharp mind allowed her to learn from every attempt, no matter how small. Daniel marveled at her determination, noting how she never gave up, even when tasks seemed impossible. Meanwhile, other Valeth began showing similar improvements under their respective mentors. Laura watched with growing excitement, convinced they were onto something extraordinary. Still, not everyone shared her optimism. Some members of the team voiced concerns about the ethics of the program, while others worried about the implications of empowering such a vulnerable species. Laura knew these questions needed answers, but for now, she focused on the task at hand. The Valeth were proving themselves capable of far more than anyone had imagined, and she was determined to see just how far they could go. In the vast and uncharted regions of the Andromeda Galaxy, a human exploration ship drifted silently through the stars. The crew aboard the vessel had been traveling for months, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. Among them was Captain Alan Brooks, a seasoned leader known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. He stood on the bridge, staring at the glowing expanse of space outside the viewport. For weeks, their journey had yielded nothing but empty voids and dead planets. But today was different. The ship's sensors suddenly picked up an anomaly, a faint signal coming from a nearby planet. It wasn't strong enough to be artificial, but it was unusual enough to catch the attention of Dr. Laura Hayes, the ship's xenobiologist. "Captain," she said, her voice tinged with excitement, "this could be something significant." Alan nodded, signaling the pilot to adjust course toward the mysterious source. As they approached the planet, the crew grew more intrigued. The world before them was barren and desolate, its surface covered in cracked plains and jagged mountains. Yet, despite its harsh appearance, there were signs of life, small clusters of organic structures that looked almost like nests. When the team landed and ventured out, clad in protective suits, they discovered creatures unlike anything they'd ever seen. The beings were small, no taller than a child, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the dim light of their dying sun. Their large, expressive eyes darted nervously as they huddled together, clearly frightened by the strangers in front of them. These aliens seemed fragile, almost delicate, lacking any visible means of defense against predators or the hostile environment around them. They communicated using soft chirps and gestures, their movements hesitant yet deliberate. One of the creatures stepped forward. A leader, perhaps. His posture was steady compared to the others, though his body trembled slightly. Through a translator device, he introduced himself as Callan. "We are the Valeth," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "Our home is dying. We have nowhere else to go." The crew listened intently as Callan explained their plight. The Valeth were once a thriving species, relying on their intelligence and cooperation to survive in a dangerous galaxy. But over time, their planet's resources dwindled, leaving them vulnerable to extinction. Without help, they would not last much longer. Callan pleaded with Captain Brooks, asking if humanity could offer them refuge or assistance. Alan exchanged glances with his crew. This decision was unprecedented. Taking an entire alien species back to Earth would raise countless questions and risks. Still, something about the Valeth struck him deeply. Despite their frailty, there was resilience in their eyes, a spark of determination that reminded him of humanity itself. After a moment of thought, he turned to Callan. "We'll take you with us," he said firmly, "but I can't promise what will happen next." Callan bowed his head in gratitude, and the other Valeth let out soft murmurs of relief. As the crew prepared to transport the aliens onto the ship, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was far more important than anyone realized. She watched the Valeth carefully, noting how quickly they adapted to new surroundings and how eager they were to learn. There was potential here, not just for survival, but for growth. Back on the ship, as they set course for Earth, Alan stared out at the stars again. He wondered what awaited them when they returned. Would humanity embrace the Valeth, or would fear and prejudice overshadow the opportunity to connect with another intelligent species? One thing was certain: the journey ahead would change both races forever.